Okay, so a few example questions that could come up around positive externalities on F581. Explain how a positive externality such as healthcare causes a market failure. So that would be a AO3 question, graph plus the recipe. Comment on the extent to which education causes positive externalities. So again, the graph with the recipe applied to education, but then again, why education might not be a positive externality, or might just benefit people within the market. A subsidy question could incorporate positive externality, discuss the extent to which bus subsidies can correct a market failure. So you can put the subsidy graph on top of the positive externality graph to highlight its effectiveness. And lastly, discuss the extent to which the NHS should be provided by the public sector. And one of your arguments for it being provided by the public sector would be that it causes positive externalities. So if we have a look at the graph, we've got the costs and benefits on the axis and the quantity output on this axis. We have the current equilibrium, P1 and Q1, and if we're analysing why it's a market failure, we're analysing the underconsumption aspect away from the socio-optimum quantity and price. So as a definition, we'd be defining it as marginal social benefits greater than marginal private benefits, or that there is an external benefit to a third party who did not consent to it. And because there is an external benefit to the third party, the price paid includes some private benefit, but also some external benefit. So therefore, the price is too great because this external benefit is not being paid for. So the kind of private cost is greater than the private benefit, so it's unlikely that people will consume, or some people will consume, because of this external benefit that's not consented for. Now the question is around how that is shown in the graph, because the fact that the price paid is too high means that the consumption is too low, or the production is too low, and this leads to the loss of allocative efficiency, because we are less than the socially optimum quantity. Now on the graph, the shaded area is the welfare loss, and the external benefit is the difference between that price and that price, or between A and B. On the graph, or you can refer to it as P1 to P2 on the graph. If we look at where the market should be, so it's at the socio-optimum, currently within the private market, that is the price that the private or the first party would be willing to pay to increase it to the socio-optimum quantity. So to go from B to, let's say, C would mean that the price would have to be reduced. So the price is too high for them at this point. They are not willing to pay that price. The price they are willing to pay, which comes to a new equilibrium, is at B. So the price being too high is at PSO. They're not willing to pay that price, but they are willing to pay that price, which is the equilibrium between the private benefit and the social cost. But what we want is that equilibrium, which is at a higher price, but it's how we get the market to achieve that. One way we can do it is subsidies, and we'll look at that. The other way would be to give information, and people may value it more, and then they may increase their consumption, and that would bring the private benefits up to the social benefits. But you're relying on altruism there. So the price being too high is at PSO, and that means that the quantity becomes too low because the demand can't reach a stable equilibrium at PSO. It can only reach a stable equilibrium at P1 Q1, which the quantity then becomes too low, and this is the loss of allocative efficiency. So that's explaining why it's a market failure. We'd want to apply it, so what the external benefits are, and it could be in terms of healthcare, that it's reduction of other people's taxes. That's the benefit people get. It could be in terms of education, that it creates economic growth in the future as people on higher incomes spend more and creates jobs for other people. It could be a better environment if we invest in clean technology, so there would be utility gained for other people based on that. Now, if we come back to the positive externality graph here, and we know that we want to get the market to this equilibrium, from this equilibrium, it's the quantity we're going to increase, and it's kind of how we're going to get here. And we've just said that consumers aren't willing to pay this price, but they would be willing to pay this price. So what we do is we subsidise the social cost, and this brings down the price from P1 to P3, but we achieve the socio-optimum quantity. So the subsidy is paid for by the government to businesses. This lowers the cost of production, which allows supply to shift right, S to S1 or MSC to MSC plus subsidy. This reduces the price to P3, which equals an increase in quantity to QSO, and then we've solved the market failure as we've increased the consumption. So this is one way to incorporate a positive externality. It also allows you to justify the NHS being public, because you would argue that if it was provided for in the private sector, it would occur at quantity 1 and it wouldn't be socio-optimum. You can also analyse it using the bus market or subsidies and why they solve the market failure, because the increase in quantity to the socio-optimum is the key to answering the specific question of solving the market failure. If you were happy to do so, or you could just, when you draw the subsidy, just put QSO if you just want to do it on a supply and demand diagram to reference the solution of the market failure.